I stood frozen, gripping the divorce papers Matteo had thrown at me. His smug expression told me he had planned this for a long time. Beside him stood Charlotte, her arm wrapped around his, a smirk on her face. "I'm leaving you for her," Matteo said coldly. "Take that useless child and get out." My heart pounded in my chest. How could he throw away our 3 years of marriage so easily? I looked at him, then at Charlotte. They expected me to beg, to cry. Instead, I swallowed my pain, knowing I had to be strong. For my unborn child. Matteo had changed ever since he found out we were having a girl. His once excited face turned to disgust. "I don't need a daughter," he scoffed. His parents, equally cruel, sneered. "Why does it have to be a girl?" They treated me like an outsider, forcing me to do housework despite my pregnancy. I endured it all, believing things would change once my baby arrived. But now, with divorce papers in my hands and Charlotte standing victorious beside my husband, I realized the truth. They had never cared for me or my child. I had been nothing but an inconvenience. Tears stung my eyes as I packed my belongings. Matteo and his family watched, offering no apology, no remorse. My hands trembled as I dialed my mother's number. "Mom, can I come home?" My voice cracked, but I held back my sobs. She responded without hesitation. "Come home, Ava. You and the baby will be safe here." Relief washed over me. I took one last look at Matteo. He was already looking away, uninterested in the woman he once vowed to love. Taking a deep breath, I turned and walked out, leaving behind a house that had never felt like home. My mother welcomed me with open arms, her warmth healing the wounds Matteo had left. For the first time in months, I felt safe. I rested, ate nourishing food, and prepared for the arrival of my daughter. But deep down, a bitter thought festered. Matteo hadn't contacted me once. No calls, no messages, no concern for his unborn child. Days turned to weeks, and my hatred for him grew. I thought I had escaped his cruelty, but something inside me whispered that this wasn't over. Matteo had abandoned me, but I had a feeling he wasn't done causing pain. Labor came faster than I expected. The pain was overwhelming, but my mother held my hand, guiding me through every moment. "You're strong, Ava," she whispered. And then, after what felt like an eternity, I heard the first cry. Tears streamed down my face as the nurse placed my daughter in my arms. "She's beautiful," my mother said softly. I looked at my baby, my heart swelling with love. She was mine. No one could take her from me. But as I held her, a dark thought crept into my mind. Matteo didn't even know she was born. Days passed, and I sent Matteo photos of our daughter, hoping for a response. Nothing. Not even a single word. I told myself I didn't care, that we didn't need him. But deep inside, his silence gnawed at me. He had replaced me so easily. Had he erased his daughter from his life, too? My mother noticed my frustration. "Some people don't realize what they have until it's gone," she said. I nodded, but something felt off. Why had Matteo disappeared completely? Was he truly done with me? Or was he hiding something even worse? Unable to shake my suspicions, I returned to Matteo's house, my mother by my side. As I stepped inside, my heart dropped. Laughter echoed through the halls, children's laughter. My eyes darted to the living room, where a young boy sat playing with Charlotte. Matteo stood beside them, his hand on her shoulder. "Who is this?" I demanded. Matteo turned, startled, before his lips curled into a smirk. "My family," he said. My mind reeled. "Your family?" My voice shook. The boy looked around 2 years old. My stomach churned as realization dawned. Matteo had been cheating long before my pregnancy. Charlotte stood, her gaze taunting. "Did you really think you were special?" she sneered. "Mateo and I have been together for years." My breath caught in my throat. It all made sense now. His sudden coldness, his disappointment over having a daughter. He had already secured a better family in his eyes. "Get out!" Mateo snapped, shoving the divorce papers at me. My fists clenched. He thought he had won. He thought I was weak, but he had no idea what I was capable of. I refused to let my daughter be tossed aside like I had been. My mother stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "Mateo, do you know who Ava's uncle is?" His face twisted in confusion. "So what?" he scoffed. My mother's lips curled into a knowing smile. "He owns the company you work for. Your entire career? It wasn't built on talent. It was family connections." The blood drained from Mateo's face. "If you divorce Ava, you lose everything." A silence fell over the room. Charlotte's smug expression faltered. Mateo's confidence crumbled. He had expected me to leave with nothing. Instead, he realized he was the one about to lose everything. My mother continued. "Isrania," her voice unwavering. "And you've been embezzling company funds, haven't you? We already know." Mateo's eyes widened in horror. His father stammered, "That's ridiculous." My mother sighed. "Oh, but it's already been reported." Panic washed over Mateo. He fell to his knees. "Please, Ava, don't do this," he begged. But I felt nothing for him now. "You did this to yourself," I said coldly. "You, Charlotte, and your entire family are nothing to me anymore." For the first time, Mateo realized what it meant to lose. Mateo signed the divorce papers that night, his hands shaking. Charlotte stood motionless, eyes darting between us. "This isn't fair," she shrieked. But fairness had never been part of her game, had it? As I left, I felt lighter than I had in years. Mateo and his family had once controlled my life, but no longer. I was free. But as I walked away, I knew this wasn't over. People like them never let go so easily. Months later, Mateo appeared at my doorstep, looking disheveled. His once proud face was filled with regret. "Ava, please," he whispered. "Let me see my son." I stared at him, confused. "Your son?" His eyes widened as I stepped aside, revealing my 1-year-old boy. "But you had a daughter," Mateo stammered. I smirked. "The doctors made a mistake." Realization dawned on his face. He had thrown me away, thinking our child was a girl. Now, knowing he had a son, he wanted back in. But I had already moved on. I introduced my husband, a kind and loving man who had been by my side since Mateo left. "He's raising my son as his own," I said proudly. Mateo's face contorted with fury. "You can't replace me," he bellowed. "You replaced yourself," I said. "And now you're nothing to us." He lunged toward my son, but my husband stepped in, shielding him. "Leave," I warned, "or I'll call the police." Realizing he had lost everything, Mateo left, but his downfall continued. His embezzlement charges caught up to him, and soon he was arrested. Charlotte had vanished, leaving behind a child that wasn't even his. Karma had finally caught up. With Mateo gone, I thrived. My husband and I built a happy home, and my children grew up surrounded by love. The shadows of my past no longer haunted me. I had once believed my life was over, but now I knew the truth. I had only just begun.